today is Sven from AXA Design. He's going to do a short presentation. We've also got Jesse from G-Lux and Marcus Strang. So Marcus is one of 5 certifiers, Passive House certifiers in Australia. Jesse's obviously a pretty established Passive House builders. According to his stubby hole that he left at my place on Saturday, he is Melbourne's premier Passive House builder. The reason why I was really hoping to get all you guys and girls here today is it was off the back of a presentation that Sven did at the Passive House conference, and he brought to everyone's in the room's attention that as Passive House grows in popularity, there seems to be a missing link with like the education piece between why you actually need to build as per design, and Sven is going to talk through that as we move through this presentation. Sven, I'd like to throw over to you, mate, if you want to get cracking on that presentation.
No worries. Okay, cool. Hang on. Working? Yeah. All good? Here you are? Yep. Thanks for having me here tonight. Thanks for the invite, Hamish. As Hamish said, this is a presentation that I took to the Thrive conference, the Passive House conference that was in Melbourne just recently. Something that I've been deliberating on for a while, and Mark Van Handel is here tonight, and I had conversations about this on one of our projects we did together in Surrey Hills. And so I'll try and tailor it a little more to the audience than the audience I have there, and I've already tried to adjust it a bit. This is about a process that was developed in Germany, so please try and think about that a little bit as we go. So we've been on this journey for a little while now, and that's a design, doing Passive House projects, all residential projects. We've learned quite a few things along the way. So, of the projects we've had certified, and there's a few that are yet to be certified, they're on the way, then we've experienced a lot of really great wins, things that we've learned that I'll share, and also some really big lessons which are more important to communicate. So we'll run through some of those now. So these are beautiful sliding doors. They look wonky on the slideshow, but these are the thinnest, most beautiful thermal broken aluminium sliding doors that came out from Germany. Aside of all assurances from the suppliers from Germany, the importers here in Australia, these extremely expensive sliding doors have not achieved the required air tightness for the Passive House certification. It may be that when they replace some seals, they might get to that level. But at the moment, the best result they've got is 0.68. Ever so close. So that project it's technically can't be certified. This is a thermal breach issue, so you can see the frame is lined up with the edge of the slab. It should have been hanging over the edge of the slab by 40mm to allow the slab edge insulation to come up and butt up to the stud frame and achieve a continuous line of insulation. So that is a thermal breach now. It's obviously not as we documented it, and had we not done a voluntary site visit and resolved an alternative solution with the builder, then that project wouldn't have been certified either. Now, I don't actually have a photo of the particular issue in this project, but we advise the clients, this is in Bonnie Doon, right on the lake, we advise the clients against putting in a fireplace. You just will not need a fireplace. And aside of all assurances, graphs, data, infographics, we gave them a lot, they still insisted on a fireplace. So we selected one of the ones that were recommended. You know where this is going, right? So that fireplace is not allowing us to achieve the air tightness for that project. So it's lessons like this that have forced us to reflect on project certification. And so I'm proposing that if we want certification, of projects, of passive house projects, to become more broadly accepted and successful, then we need to consider some changes. So I'm proposing to all of our community that are passionate about building passive house, that if we want to grow this particular standard in Australia, then upskilling in the workforce is obviously required, you know. And think big picture here, right? Think volume builders producing passive house, right? You guys in this room aren't the problem. You're here getting education, learning, pursuing the detail. But when we take this further and further, the quality slowly dissipates, I believe. So we need to evolve and adapt to address the cultural differences between the German origins of passive house and the countries that are adopting it. It applies around the world, right? But here in Australia is what we're talking about today. So we're talking about a process developed in Germany, known for its engineering, its integrity, and its precision. You know, how many A's do you see designed in Germany, right? And that's their mantra, that's what they're all about. So when a builder signs a declaration letter assuring the passive house certified that he has followed the design documents explicitly, you can be confident in Germany that that builder has done that, right, to the millimetre. Yeah, it's like building a Swiss watch for these guys. Maybe German watch, I don't know. Anyway, so here in Australia, I think that dilutes a little bit. So when we translate that, we end up with builders who perhaps haven't followed the explicit detail on the drawings. And so there's that famous note that everyone sees on drawings in Australia, you know, windows to client selection, or cladding to builder's selection, like that stuff that's just thrown everything. That doesn't even get into the passive house standard, let alone be certified. So yeah, this is the kind of bare bones basics we've got in Australia that we've got to try and drag up to a higher level. So let's take a slightly more detailed view. So everyone here knows the passive house principles, I'm assuming, so I won't delve into that in any great detail. But as you probably know, when a project is being certified, the certifier is checking that the 5 principles have been constructed as designed and documented. Yeah, he's already been through the drawings and vetted them. He's checked that everything there complies. Marcus will tell you it's a laborious process of excruciating detail. So all aspects of the 5 principles are checked thoroughly at the start of the project, and then at the end of the project it's verified by the certifier when they review the test certificates, receipts, photos of the building, and of course the declaration letter. And here's the problem. Let's imagine that the builder hasn't really come to the party for whatever reason. It could be inexperience, it could be a lack of care, whatever. You might get something like this. Now some of you might have seen this image. This is from Facebook, and credit goes to Anonymous, didn't want to be known. This is a passive house project. And yes, the installation was rectified before it was too late, so we're told. So let's imagine that this is now being adopted by a much larger audience, and this is happening here in, here out, every other project on certified projects. It gets hidden behind the plasterboard, and then the certifier sees it. Can't be rectified, it's too late. So it's not just the continuous insulation like this that's the problem. The other principles are also at risk, as I've shown. Air tightness, thermal bridging, these things can all undo you after it's built. And so, boiling those lessons down, what I'm thinking we should do is the certifier's review is happening too late, as I've mentioned, because it's not adding value to the process of certification. certification. It's happening at the end. Yeah, it's too late to fix anything. I think that value add should be that it happens earlier and during construction. So not only though should it be happening during construction, I think it's also the way we review those 5 principles during construction that we should consider changing as well. So, as you can see, the 5 key principles, only the air tightness is independently verified on site. Everything else is on the builder. And that to me is a challenge and something I'm trying to get my head around. So I think we need to consider adopting across the board an independent inspection of all of the principles while they're in the construction phase, during construction, when they're being built. Now, this is, believe it or not, this is going to shock you all, and you're not going to like this. It's probably something very similar to our current building inspection system, yeah? Very similar, where they inspect the footings, they inspect the frame and do those basic, AS inspections. Well, for Passive House, I think something similar to that could work really well. So we're obviously relying on the honesty and integrity of the builders at the moment to achieve the goal of Passive House certification. So when you overlay that with the broader cultural differences that exist, you can see that we may end up in a bit of a pickle, and I think we need to fix things. This might be on the radar of the Passive House Institute in Germany. This could be something that they're aware of and are working towards, because since 2021, they've got a construction verifier qualification. On that note, there's one person in Australia who holds that qualification. It's not me, and it's not these guys. It's Ash from Logicast. Everyone knows Ash. I don't know why he got it, but he did. But he's in the box seat, I think. This is exactly what we're looking for. Someone who can do independent inspections and verify what's going on site. So this is the current process. This is off the APA website. And I think if we can adapt our process and introduce this verification, whether it be the construction verifier as qualified by the Institute, or the project designer or architect, hey, we'll come and do it, no problems. We've documented it, we'll check that you've built what's been documented. It could be the engineer, it could be the Passive House designer, and Marcus would love to go to site and do something too as a certified, for sure, but who's going to pay $600 an hour? So, issues encountered during construction will be communicated back down the line, right, to the designers. So if we've got people coming to site and checking details, and the detail isn't right, well then there's a conversation had and everyone learns from that, I think. And that flows down the line. The designer will do it differently next time because he knows the builder didn't want to do it that way the first time, so he'll document it better next time. Yeah? The builder will go, well, now I understand all the principles and why it was done that way. And we've agreed we'll do it this way next time. Hey, it's a win-win. I'm going to get my way next time. It's just everyone lives up to that standard. Interestingly, improved detailing, I think, is a great outcome. This is a detail from the Passive House Institute in Germany on their example set of documents, right? So when they talk about project certification, there's all these different things and examples they've got, and this is an example detail that they have. They've got a whole set of drawings. This is the detail I extracted. So I don't know if anyone works off drawings to this level of detail here. I put my hand on heart and say we don't detail to that level in our projects. I'd be proud to do something like that. It's a Swiss watch. So I think the beauty of that is that over the years, for 20 years Max the Designer have been documenting projects. I reckon every single project I've gone to site and I've seen details that are not as per our drawings. And sometimes that's an agreement between the builder and the client or whatever that is. But that sort of stuff will become less. So, Just scrolling through my notes. After this slide, I've got a few simple slides to show. Might throw a little bit of humour in there, hopefully. I've used AI to generate some images, and I'm going to use these images to drum home the key points as to the advantages of changing the Passive House certification process. So, this dude's missed a step for some reason. Anyway, I've got a bit of a funky hand too. On-site education, as I mentioned, that's going to be nurtured. Trade skills will develop accordingly. This will occur as there'll be an engagement with the design parameters, including aesthetics, engineering, physics and costs. Trades will effectively gain more insight into the importance of their role. AI's improved here and done alright with the papers a bit funky, but the administrative tasks of builders would be reduced, I think. This might offer improved efficiency of certification, that is, reduced delays to receiving all of the certification documents. And we've had some projects that have taken over 12 months to achieve certification because the importance of providing as-built evidence has been diminished by the importance of getting a new project started. It's completely understandable. We're running businesses, so it makes sense. That's Passive House certifier that is confident, by the way. So the certifier would possibly have greater confidence in the construction as the independent verification and inspections of the construction had taken place, rather than the certifier interpreting images that might not cover the extent of the project as needed. And this is, that's a nice shirt sleeve. So it's possible that we would see an improvement in the throughput of certifiers. I know we've now got 5 certifiers, but they're all very busy, yeah? And so they'll have potentially a little bit less administrative work to do, so they'll be able to do more work to deliver more certified passive houses to our country. A number of the boxes would have been ticked for them already by the independent verifier, and that means less time working on photos and interpreting it. So on that note, a little side story, the best result we've had so far is when our building surveyor went rogue, right? This is a passive house in Jan Juck, the certification's done. He went rogue and insisted that the building permit actually had certified passive house written on the documents, yeah, on the building permit itself. So what that meant was when it came to actually issuing the occupancy certificate for the clients, he couldn't do that until the certifier had certified the building. So that was incredible. Like, as designers who had waited over 12 months for some projects, to have it delivered, it was about 4 weeks for that project. Marcus did that, and like I remember seeing, like, and Paul Gray from Carl Green was involved, and they just smashed it. Like, it was so efficient, it was incredible. I don't think anyone else got anything out of Marcus for that 4-week period other than us. It was amazing. And here is a happy passive house homeowner. AI couldn't do the Clark side of the Clark. Maybe with the proposed independence of the inspection system, we'd likely see greater transparency and market confidence in the finished product. And that has to be a good thing for the passive house community and the brand of passive house, I believe. So, if we want continued growth of passive house into the mainstream, I'm nearly done, this is my last slide, clearly. Then more successful projects can be achieved. This can be done with improved passive house certification processes, more streamlined, more robust, and that will help us distinguish a passive house from a home built to passive house principles. Yeah? And that's a hint to another subject I'll talk about another time. So, thanks so much for listening and being so patient with me and my terrible notes. I'm done.
detail there. Because I know there are a few builders in here who haven't done a passive house yet, or they're just, I guess, embarking on their passive house journey. I'm interested just to throw a question to Marcus for a second, and maybe if you can talk through the importance of why this detail is critical and why it needs to be executed as designed.
Sure. So I think the key part of this detail is that we're specifying all the insulation products, so it's really labelled, so the builder understands what insulation must be installed, and we cannot just swap it out for something of lower quality. We've got the weather resistant membrane details and the air tightness membrane details, so it's all very clear. It makes it much easier when implementing that airtight envelope. So that's all being thought through the design, so the builder doesn't have to make guesses and potentially errors. So just avoiding any of that. I guess
Probably not going specifically into that detail, but more about the reason why it's important to execute it like that, because it's obviously been modelled in pre-construction, and all of this data and information is getting put into PHPP, and you're either getting a pass or fail. So maybe talk through if it doesn't get designed or built as designed, what some of the ramifications could be.
Yeah, sure. So with Passive House, we're always aiming for highly efficient building, really controlling the interior surface temperature, so hygiene and thermal comfort, like the three main categories, and that's all measured in a single detail. So when you're looking at the thermal performance of that detail, that goes into the model, and you're making sure that you're not exceeding the heating and cooling caps. And then for, let's say, mitigating from bridging or something like that, the designer would detail out that model to make sure that we're not exceeding, going below surface temperatures. And so if any of those things were to change, that has to either be remediated to further expense, and maybe if they do build it, then that potentially does mean taking out the plasterboard again and rebuilding it essentially. Ideally we can avoid that situation by keeping to the design, and obviously if we have that early contractor involvement and the builder goes on and say, hey, this is actually not that buildable, having those conversations early on with the design team to make sure we have a solution that's really buildable and will work.
Just add to that, Mark, so there's also a chance that detail's been run through Flixo or wood fit or something, so like the millimetres matter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
While we're on that, can you just quickly touch on what both those things are?
Yeah, they're like super space age technological software that I don't understand. Marcus works with them and could explain it much better.
Sure. So I guess it's a software that allows you to do finite element modelling. So it's looking at the heat transfer through particular materials. So you model up the geometry and the thermal conductivity associated with those properties. So in this instance, you've got that junction detail, and you're looking at the heat flow from the outside to the inside. So you have a big steel beam that's going to conduct a lot of heat out of the building and going to cause low surface temperatures adjacent in that junction. So making sure that you model that allows you to quantify the heat loss and the surface temperature. And then you would this is not an optimal junction, so then you can figure out how to thermally break that. Say if you've got steel, you can put insulation around the outside to make sure that stays warm and not going to cause any condensation or mold or excessive heat loss. So then if you go and build that building and you forget that you don't do it as per the detail, then that's critical, potentially critical to the passive house operation, causing much higher heat loss and may go over your energy balance or cause lower surface temperatures and may cause mold, for instance. So really, really cool software there, really fun to play around with.
Hey Jesse, so you've obviously been building passive houses for a while. Obviously we're in a room full of builders here. Could you talk through some of your experiences in documenting some of these details, and I guess the communication you have with your team on executing these kind of details, and then how you would then go through and document them to ensure Marcus's job is nice and easy at the end.
Sure. Well, getting a window detail like this for a builder is awesome. Like, I've done some jobs in the past, and we would never change a window detail, but it might not have something specific, like exactly where we're going to put the air types and how we're going to do the air types to the window. So there'll be like a bit of team meeting, what's the best way we're going to attach this air tightness to the window. Then we might go back to Marcus or even the architect on the project, discuss, you know, how about we do it this way? We'll do it, we'll add a reveal, we'll make the air tight, we'll reveal air tight to the window, and we'll put the air tightness onto the reveal, which might be different in the detail. But a detail like this is gold for us. And you know, I guess back when I started Passive House, I feel we didn't have this level of detail, but now it's more and more common. We're getting, you know, window suppliers now that are providing window details with packages, which really helps. And say we're doing a window detail where we have to add reveals, we will take photos and document that throughout the process, from you know, sealing the reveal to the window, and then installing the window, the insulation around the window, and then the air tightness. So we'll take photos of all that. I think photos is like one of the biggest key parts that I rely on my team to do out on site. And I know Sven was saying, you know, you miss a photo, it can cause a headache down the track. Lucky we haven't been in a critical position where we've done that. We've been close a few times. We've managed to get some photos before it was too late. But yeah, I can imagine it'd be pretty frustrating for Marcus to not see something when he needs it. So
Yeah, I can add something to that. I have a question around that later on, but I really do encourage having hold points in the builder's contract. Potentially just to say, before we pour the slab, before, you know, as a contractual obligation, before we pour the slab, we have to get those photographs, or before we install the air tightness membranes, we have to get those photos of the insulation behind the air tightness. Before it's locked away, it becomes pretty impossible to check without damaging the build. Yeah.
So you feel it's like you being a certifier, you want to be that person to be notified and say, hey, here's my photos, the folder for the slab. Can you, can you please look at it?
We can do it like that, absolutely, and that's something we spoke about at the conference. We can set up like a schedule, essentially, to make it so, I guess it's organised far in advance. The designer can upload those photos for the certifier to then review and say, hey, even though it's midway through or quarter way through construction, we don't have to, the certifier can review it before the end of the build to make sure everyone's happy. But like Sven was saying, I think there is definitely a space in the market for that construction verifier. And then just to add to that, so Roberto Petruzzi, he's just he's the second person in UP High. But I think there's definitely a space for that to allow that independent review process, and I think it will make it easier for the builders.
Giving the certifiers all the photos at the end of the project is a fucking pain in the ass if you're a builder. So my advice would be to do it as you go, and it's a lot easier for them to make sure that you're getting all the right details. Sven, there was a slide you had earlier on where the slab wasn't overhanging where the frame wasn't overhanging the slab. I'm curious to know if that was missed. Other than not getting certified, what are the risks of that not being executed as designed?
I guess the worst case scenario is that you'd have, well, as I mentioned, it'd be a thermal bridge. And so you'd have a cold spot along the edge of the slab here in our climate in Victoria. So, yeah, all along through the inside of the building, along through here, that would all be cold. And so that potentially could have condensation in the winter months.
and potentially lead to rot and building fabric degradation.
That's right, yeah.
So it's not just about making sure you get it certified. There are some risks. You know, if you think about building as a whole ecosystem, you know, we can't just cherry pick a few things and do a few things right. They all need to be done correctly. I've got a question I'm going to throw to Marcus here. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for anyone to ask questions, so I've just got a few here to get through. Is it risky to just get a passive house designer to do a preliminary assessment and build based on the outcomes of that assessment?
Yeah, that is risky, and I've had that happen before, where builder builds the project based on a very preliminary report from the passive house designer. So there's no review that's been taken place, independent review by a certifier. And in that case, there was a lot of issues, and that's to be expected. There's thousands of inputs in the passive house planning package, and it's only human to make errors, and that's the whole purpose of the certifier, to go and check that, make sure the inputs stand up to scrutiny. And in that case, it was a big issue that there were a few things that were missed, and there were issues for compliance. So definitely recommend on the design side that they kind of go through 3 touch points with the certifier. So early on, during that concept stage, where they're kind of looking at the project, looking at the feasibility of the project to achieve passive house. And then if the client still wants to target passive house certification, then doing another review pre-construction. So that's once all the components have been selected, once mechanical ventilation, specific windows, window order forms available, all the thermal bridging has been done. So really checking in detail every aspect of the passive house design. And once that's been, review has been completed, the certifier would issue a design assurance letter to the client to say, yep, I've looked at the design, and from the design perspective, this project will achieve compliance. And if you then go and progress and build this building as per the design, it will achieve compliance. So that's, and then the final review being right at the end, once the commissioning, void, or photographic evidence has been uploaded to the passive house certification platform.
Yeah, so just for clarity, there's a passive house designer who designs the building, and in Sven's case it could be him or it could be an external party. The certifier is the person that actually just certifies at the end. So just to put a bit of clarity around that. Jess, when you first started building passive houses, I'm not going to call it mistakes, but I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that you learned in those first couple of projects. Can you maybe talk to maybe some of the things that you've learned in the past, that maybe you could share some of the upcoming passive house builders there, so maybe they can execute it?
Sure. Alright, I reckon one of the rookie mistakes, which I'm sure a few other guys out here probably would have done, would be to have the glass wool on the floor, under the sheet floor, wrapped underneath the joists, then it rains, then it gets wet, and then you have to dry all the insulation and all that. I guess that's just a bit of a, we kind of knew there's a possibility of that happening, so you're trying to frame, get it done as quick as possible, get the envelope watertight. But here in Melbourne, no matter when you do a frame, it's going to rain, 100%. You're always going to get rain when you frame. So that was the one we learned. We've never gone down that path again. And another one was early in the days with my subcontractors, briefing them and saying this is their first passive house. This is what we've got to do with the penetrations. Educating them how to do it. Educated my electrician, educated my plumber. I wasn't there to educate my AC guy. Unfortunately, it slipped through gaps on that one, and he just demolished the airtightness on this job. And from a super tight airtight, it was the tightest one I've ever got, to end up with just parts. We managed to fix what he did. So that was something we learned. A few other things along the way was probably not putting measuring tape on insulation. Taking a photo of that. That was one. We were able to get in there and measure it with a tape before it was too late, so that was good.
just to be clear, that's measuring thickness of the insulation, right?
Correct.
Not that it's
Yeah.
4 feet when to start phrases.
Yeah, that was quite safe insulation, so it's like a 75mm thickness that was required. Yeah, that's just a few that I can think of, mate.
I might just add something there as well, around the airtightness challenges for trades to come in. It's a possum, by the way, it's a president possum, just be careful, it will jump at you.
So in 20 years, when we all die, we're gonna find the first
For the airtightness challenges, when trade is coming in, I do recommend having an airtightness champion as part of the build team and having a
Yeah, boss, from the side.
just to induct tradies who come on site. It tends to be a good way that it's kind of you give one person responsibility for that who's on site and they can kind of monitor that. That seems to be to have worked well in the past.
I guess it was probably because it was our first of introducing the trades. Now all the trades we use, they understand the importance of it. So we don't have to brief them on every job unless it's something totally out of whack. But generally, it's all
I mean, you can appreciate the fact that Jess has talked about measuring insulation. Like that's the kind of detail that you guys need to go to when you're. Well, it's the kind of information that Mark's after when you're certifying a building. But Sven, I'm curious to know. I'm smiling when I say this, because actually having one of my projects with Sven. What happens when the builder substitutes a material or component that's not being run through PHPP? What can happen?
Oh, that's really fun. What we do is we call these in Germany. They send out the firing alarm. So no, it introduces a whole raft of challenges. Everything has to be recalculated and retested, redrafted. You know, it can really cause a lot of angst because if your project's only just stacking up, it may tip it into the next performance layer. You might end up in a low energy building instead of being passive house classic, for example. So, so don't go subbing stuff without that full confidence of the whole team. Yeah, like if your architect just gives you the old nod and goes, yeah, she'll be right, mate. Make sure you go to passive house designer and or the certifier and get them to give it the nod as well. Question looking to call the engineer because they just want to charge you more money.
So I'll speak the experience that we had. So I was on probably one of our first passive house projects. We, deep in the middle of COVID, originally had a certified passive house window suite that we're getting from China. And due to shipping and delays and stuff like that, we substituted out for a locally manufactured window suite. Still triple glazed, still UPVC, but the performance values weren't as good as the certified Chinese windows, which we've used, which are really good windows. And we ended up falling into PHI energy territory. And now that building is a certified building, but it's PHI energy. So a simple mistake, I guess you could call it, or an uneducated decision can lead to not quite hitting that desired outcome. Now, from
How is that also going?
fortunately, the clients are very good friends of mine, and I did ask them whether or not that the plaque on the wall, the fact that it's different, makes any difference to their living, and they said no. Well, they said no to my face, and I must have But yeah, it's really important that you're following as designed and as documented. Just the photographs that you need to take on site. How do you go about documenting that? Do you keep them? This is more just like an advice sort of tip for people here that are looking at getting projects certified. Yeah. How do you do that?
So we've got a Dropbox folder set up with all the different stages, from slab right through to the completion photos. And our guys on site, so our leading hand Chippy, he'll be the one to document those stages. So he'll obviously get a nudge from myself or construction manager to say, hey, we're at the stage now. Don't forget to take these photos. And those photos will automatically get uploaded to our folder, and then myself, or one of the girls in the office will monitor that folder and will say, hey, you know, we need some more details on these photos, and also, you know, we'll send a Dropbox link to someone like Marcus or the Passive House designer, so they've got that link live as well, and they can jump on and have a look at the photos. So, but yeah, it's something you've definitely got to keep on, because you don't want to have all these photos at the end of the job that you're trying to populate and think, oh shit, this one. So it's something you have to monitor throughout the job. Yeah.
I think Brian Guyan was saying his team use WhatsApp to log their photos, so WhatsApp chat for each job. But I don't know how he then does subfolders to categorise them. I'm not clear on that. But there's probably half a dozen different ways to do it.
Yeah. Like you said, Marcus, you know, going to try to have like someone in charge of the air tightness, and have someone in charge of the photos on that job.
And before I throw out to some questions in the crowd, I'm going to throw this to Sven. So how would a relatively inexperienced passive house builder and an experienced passive house designer combination work in terms of achieving certification?
Which way around was that? Sorry? Inexperienced builder.
Inexperienced builder.
So I think that with all of it, I think the key is communication. The inexperienced builder, even if they see passive house on the drawings, probably really want to spend the time looking at the detail, you know, because that's where the devil is, right? And then interact with the architect and designer about those documents as early as possible. So early contractor engagement is a really important process. We find that adds a lot of value to our documentation of passive house projects, because we get the details to work the way the builder wants them to be. Because I'm sure if I asked all of you in this room as builders, you'd all want to do a wall assembly or a junction slightly different to each other. You've all got your preferences, or you're comfortable working with materials you like or don't like or have access to or whatever. So we have to be a little bit nimble. So the communication is a critical component, and I guess that's what this presentation is about today, is that understanding the importance of following the drawings and not winging it on site with something else. So, yeah, communication.
Do you have any questions? It's a tough crowd. Surely Mark's got a question. Oh, Simon.
I can imagine a really potentially disastrous recipe, having an inexperienced builder without the details. Well, and I suppose Jess, you could probably refer that to. Where's the responsibility for? Because I mean, the last thing you want is an inexperienced builder that doesn't know the detail.
Yeah, well, I guess if we're uncertain, we'll always go back to the designer, really. So I guess if you think you're above and beyond that and you're going to wing it, you probably shouldn't be doing passive houses, really. So you should, yeah. So we've had a few times where something hasn't been clear. We've got some clarity from the designer, maybe just a quick detail. They managed to send that to us quickly, and that moves us forward. So I think, yeah, winging it is probably something we shouldn't be doing.
Would you sign a contract without that detail?
I guess I would. It would depend on if there was something that was completely like a custom job or something that was like quite extensive. Might be different, but just from a generic passive house perspective, from where I'm at with my experience now, I'd be comfortable to sign a contract. Yeah.
There is a bit of confidence that comes with experience, I think too. So, like Jesse, if it was your first one, you'd probably have a slightly different mindset, I imagine. We've actually got a project where, believe it or not, it's just about finished. It's going to be certified, but we didn't have the PHBP done at all. It was a complete failing in that process. I've not revealed this to anyone. This is like a deep dark secret that I've just pulled out of my wardrobe. I don't know why I'm airing my dirty laundry, but like, we've documented probably 50 passive house projects, you know, since 2016. And for whatever reason, in our process, something went wrong. Someone unplugged someone's hardwired, I don't know. Anyway, the PHBP was not completed, We documented it like we would document any other passive house project. We knew the client, we'd worked in it before, and luckily, it's going to fly, it's going to work. But I'd hate to think of a lawsuit had we not, known what we were doing. So, experience is one thing. It's still got to be on the plans. Yeah, like we've taken over some projects recently that are passive house projects from another designer, and they're just not there. They're nowhere near where they need to be, and the builder even didn't realise the detail was missing. And we're saying, why are you building 400 deep eaves? I mean, this is the construction cost issue now. And the builder said, I'm not building 400 eaves. I said, well, it's on the plans. And he goes, oh, that's what I'm doing. So this is a passive house. Just got all shit down his spine. I want to call clients aside and say, hey, you need to change builders. He's not even reading the plans. He's already quoted the project. Anyway, sorry, digressing.
Any other questions?
I'm doing my first passive house at the moment.
Hey, Mike, we'll get you a mic. Mike, we'll get you a mic.
Building my first passive house.
Round of applause for Mike.
They intended to get it certified. They signed a contract, weren't sure about it, so finally now engaged to certify for a frame stage. We've already had to substitute a few things. This alternative pathway we presented tonight makes so much sense because a good case study for this, I've been told, about the photos and all that sort of stuff. And having those inspections and someone independent come in, it just makes perfect sense to me. So my question to you is, what's the next step for you to take that alternative pathway and potentially push that to the passive house community?
The first thing to do is hand you my business card, so inspections are very reasonable. So it was presented at the Passive House Association conference. I know the association are just overwhelmed with how much they've got to do. Their growth alone is overwhelming them with what they have to do. I've taken a few projects to them that need to be dealt with. I don't think this necessarily relies on the association to implement it though. There's no reason why we can't all implement this now ourselves. So, as builders, you guys could say to your client and design team, I want 5 independent inspections I want the passive house designer to come out and do 5 inspections. It'll add $2,000 to the bill, but geez, that $2,000 is going to save us all a shitload of headaches. Yeah? And that's what we advocate certification for. That's one of the reasons why we have a lot of projects certified, is because for us that's an insurance policy on the project. And this is the actual wording I use with clients. So if you want to get certification over the line with your clients, tell them they're buying an insurance policy. That certifier is making sure the designer is doing their job properly and producing the required detail. The passive house designer who does the PHPP, he's doing his job properly, and it's making sure the builder, I do my job properly. And so you've got this insurance policy that you can hold over everyone's head, because if I don't get my plaque, well, I'm coming for you all, So for, 5 to 10 grand, maybe it's probably closer to 10 these days, to make sure that my $1.5 million building gets that plaque. Not that anyone cares about the plaque, like it's a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? It's such a great value add to the quality, and that's what passive house is about. It's not about energy, it's about health, comfort, and quality of building fabric. These buildings have been around for hundreds of years.
Any other questions?
Just for smaller projects around CBD, how there's smaller middle class builders, a lot of them aren't going to get to the passive house state at this point in time because of the extra value added to the project. I'm just wondering where you think the viable entry point is that you would start to look at certification rather than just weather tightness and a good insulation thermal break. Because the main issue these days is, especially in the current market, getting the money to then push it on to the next passive house
a lot of people backing up before then.
Well, Marcus could probably comment more specifically on inner city stuff. Like we're working on one at the moment in Richmond, a terrace home. It's an Enfield. Of all the passive house work we've done, we see a cost addition in the range of 5 to 12% to deliver a certified passive house. This is just construction cost. There's more consultant fees and things as well. I'd advocate that you could reduce the scale of the project to compensate for that cost through smart design. So, that's where having a great team, great design practice, aka Max of Design in your project, you'll end up with a building that doesn't have condensation issues, has a healthy indoor environment. And I think that is where you could potentially have a real win. Now, at the end of the day, the client's only got a certain amount of money, and once that bag of money is empty, it's stuffed, right? So I think that's where early contractor engagement with builders and architects is a really important value add too, so you can actually massage it into something that delivers on everything. So if you have to do away with certifying the building and skim it back to a lesser build, I'm actually torn as to whether you're better off having a high quality vapor permeable membrane on the outside or an Intello with a HRV on the inside.
It's more so just linking it into raising the floor of the industry as well as your earlier point was needing to raise the floor when Australia-wide, half the houses don't have insulation, so just wondering.
I add to that. I guess, the last few years, budgets are super tight. Maybe, tacking on to what Ethan's saying here is, are we potentially creating some serious problems with now, you can go to Bowen's and you can buy all the great ProClimate products. If we're not using these things correctly and not going for certification, are we actually potentially creating some situations like we've seen in New Zealand with sick building syndrome and things like that? Like, are people who are thinking they're doing the right thing, but buying all these great products that they might see on Instagram or whatever, without the understanding of all the other passive house components that come together, or without the modelling, are we going to get in trouble?
Fortunately, that's like progress in the industry. And it's like, that's what we're doing here with SBA. We're trying to eliminate those sort of things from happening by educating people. But to progress, there are things like that that are going to happen, unfortunately, like in New Zealand. So
It's happening, right? It's happened in the 70s, it's happening again. So,
Canada, like I said, Tassie, you can learn from all these and hop over them, just build good buildings. But it tends to not work like that. It tends to just be like, we can just build incrementally, and then suddenly realise, actually we've got all these moisture issues. It is just education.
Do you think there's a SBA kind of talk that could happen to this specific climate?
We're always open to suggestions. I think it's important to just understand that a building's an ecosystem. You can't just cherry pick, and we're talking about passive house, so we'll use the passive house principles. You can't just use 3 of them or 4 of them or 1 of them. It's a whole system that all of them need to be addressed. Don't make your building airtight if you're not thinking about ventilation. That's a really quick way to create a really unhealthy building.
I'll just add to that. I think Claire Farrer gave a really good quote we found in APA very early on. That passive house is just kind of a study of minimums. It's really just a minimum you need to do to make sure we have really healthy indoor climate, really thermally comfortable spaces all the time, making sure that we're not oversizing a mechanical system just because of poor design. And if we don't go for certification, we're going to be compromising for something. So what aren't we compromising for if we're not targeting that? It is that whole system.
So as far as passive house goes, just to elaborate further, I've often used the analogy, pretty average, but I'm going to use it anyway. The 5 principles of Passy Pass. Imagine they're your 5 ingredients of a chocolate cake, right? So imagine if you leave one out. Let's say you make a chocolate cake, but you leave out the flour. You know, like, it's not a cake. You know what I'm saying? Like, they all work together. I used to use the analogy that it was like 5 legs on a table, and if you left one a bit short, your table would be wonky, but people find it hard to imagine a 5-legged table. So I changed it to chocolate cake now. So. But yeah, I don't know that really delves into what you're addressing, which, you know, I think it's a really serious issue that we've got. Proclaimer, if you've read this Australia study, you know, they
Which
make
I'm sure you all have read, is cover Australian studies.
But so those who haven't read it, the upshot is that Proclaimer assert that if we build to code, we are at risk of condensation still, right? Even with our current code. So building to code, even though it's the bare minimum, still not going to give you a great result. So just bear that in mind. The microphone, please.
Just expanding on that, on marketing, but I've just redone my insurance papers, and I noticed that there was a brand new clause on it saying I'm no longer covered for multiple buildings. So the level of risk is going to go back onto the business.
So can I ask then, out of curiosity, does that mean for all buildings retrospectively or just moving into the
I
future?
think moving forward, was my understanding, so my new policy just started,
Yeah.
I'm no longer covered for a multiple building, and so I don't know what's happening with builders in that sector, but the insurance sector is certainly moving that way, and we've got to be careful.
Absolutely, yep.
I haven't heard of that in one yet, and maybe you have heard of it. I haven't.
I mean, I think condensation and ventilation and moisture management is a big part of the new NCC, so I mean, we're all building to code, so in some degree we are liable for it, so you know, it's a thing that we really need to be conscious of.
Dare say, like I mentioned earlier, the problem with the buildings you guys, you all know what you're doing, you're all aware of it, right? That's why we're here. The problem is the other 50,000 buildings that are being built right now in Australia, Victoria, wherever it is, where everyone's doing their best to dodge the minimums and cut corners to try and deliver a building faster and cheaper. It scares the life out of me what we're putting people into.
Sorry, just following on from the forward question around, you just mentioned the 5 to 12%, I think you said.
Cost increase?
Cost increase for the Passy Pass. Does that hold for NFIT as well?
We haven't done analysis on NFIT, it's only been new builds, so I couldn't comment on NFIT, sorry.
Because I feel like a lot of these issues are, like retrofits are going to become a huge thing in our industry because we have so much fabric that needs to be done. And these issues are kind of more prevalent often in the NFIT situation because you have these like buildings that you're working with and trying to retain large parts of. So I'm wondering about the cost implications of dealing with all.
I haven't done an NFIT personally myself. I've looked into a few previously, like from drawings and stuff, and a lot of work goes into them to get them to meet NFIT. So I couldn't imagine it would be within that 12%, in my opinion.
Bill, did you have anything to say?
It's a nice line in my face, so I wouldn't say it's more expensive than I had to say.
You find a lot of unknowns, really. At least when you're in a new house, everything's documented. Not as many unknowns.
Any more questions? Look, I'm conscious of the time, so I might wrap it up. Thanks everyone for joining us for the first live event here at Better Building Exchange. We're going to be doing more of these over the next 12 months, probably every 4 to 6 weeks. Really interested to hear back from all of you as to what you would actually like us to do with this space. I know myself and Andre from Big Up back there have got a few ideas where hopefully I'll get you in a minute, Sven. Hopefully get you doing some practical stuff. So for those who are starting out on their journey, we could get some of the detailed ninjas. I'm looking at you, Sanford. I'm looking at you. We'll get these guys in, maybe even Mark, to come and help us show us how we can execute some of these details, and maybe we get Sven to design some of the details and then maybe execute doing an actual frame from and install a window from Big Windows. I'm going to give a bit of a plug. Look, we also do a podcast, Sustainable Builders Yak. We've got a really amazing website too, www.thesba.com.au, where all our webinars and a huge amount of information that Jeremy Spencer, who's sitting in the crowd here, has tirelessly worked on over the last few years. There's a huge amount of information in there, and it's not just Passive House, it's just better building. One of our gold sponsors is sitting in the crowd. Tom Walker, you put your hand up, mate. If you actually want to see a hopefully certified Passive House project under construction, Tom's actually got an open day, not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. We're actually we're supporting him on this one, so we're actually offering tickets through our Instagram page. They're free. Tom and the team are going to be running a blower door, so it's going to be a really cool project to go and see. So if anyone wants to find out more information, go and ask Tom. And again, I just want to have a big thanks to Liam and the team from Hickory's Height for allowing us to use this space. It's incredibly generous, and we're pretty excited to, even though it's a lot of work, to come out here and put these events on. Thanks for everyone for coming. Huge thanks to Sven, Jesse and Marcus. Sven, you were going to say something before?
I was having a suggestion for the meeting.
Go.
Like just a little bit of heating.
We should do an installation session.
We'll maybe practice air tightness on this one. Thanks everybody for joining us, and I think there's still some beers and food up the back there, so cheers.